Godspeed to the city streets. We began to feel the fire.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the School of Life with Sonny. Oh my days. Ooh, thrilled and tired. I am excited as always. So today I want us to talk about something that is a kind of a continuation of what you were talking about last time. So since the beginning of the year, I started talking about a few things that that I know will and should liberate you if you take them seriously. We talked about names and naming. We talked about our foundation. And today I want to pick it up from there. I want to talk about patterns and cycles. And today, as I start part one, I want to talk about paying attention to patterns and cycles. I am picking it up from foundations because I believe that foundations that have not been taken care of become patterns. And I'm going to explain what I'm saying. Again, going back, if you watched my previous video, going back to the example that I've chosen to use, right, of education. If you don't have a foundation for education, then my mother didn't have it, the mom didn't have it, so they weren't educated, then I don't recognize that that foundation that is there, and I don't break it, then I don't get an education. Then my children, because I said again, life is spiritual, my children don't get an education, and their children don't get an education. So can you see the pattern? Can you see how a pattern is being formed? Because a pattern is simply like the literal meaning of a pattern. It's a sequence of something. When something is done more than once, twice, 3 times, it becomes a pattern. It becomes a cycle. Like it's something that is repeated over and over and over again. And I was thinking of like, how do I bring this? Like, what's the best way to bring this message to you? How do I explain this pattern thing in the best way? And I thought of 2 things. I thought of a loop, which I'm going to put here. You know a loop. If you take one loop, that's just a simple pattern. Probably that is what happened some years ago. Like your dad didn't do something, like didn't invest, and maybe there was poverty started. Then the other person that comes loops in again. You come and you find your family the way they are, and you start living a life of mediocrity, and then someone else comes and they normalize that, and so the loop, the loop continues to whatever train, like it just becomes a train. But again, the other best example that I found was a crochet. When you start crocheting, and I have put a pattern here, I want you to see like the pattern of crochet. So you start with one, I don't know what it's called. Let me just call it a stitch for lack of, I'm not an expert, lack of a good terminology. So like that first crochet or that first stitch, see the way it looks like a loop actually. So that first one builds to a second one and to a third one. And eventually it looks like, it's the same. It's big and it's a pattern. It looks the same. And some of us have these patterns in families. When you look at your family, like on face value, like look at your family subjectively and see like, what are these things, your family at large, what is this thing, this one thing that has been repetitive? What is this thing that has been a pattern? The truth is, if it is not broken, it's gonna continue. Everybody else is going to come and continue with this, crocheting this thing, and it becomes big. And the bigger this thing is, the harder it is to break. The harder it is to tear it. But the best thing is, the minute someone comes and realizes, whoa, there is this pattern, and I am putting an end to this pattern. I won't continue looping into this. I'm going to put an end to this. That pattern can come to an end. that pattern can come to an end. So it's up to you again to acknowledge. It's up to you to ask for wisdom. It's up to you to decide, you know what? I'm not going to be ignorant. I'm not going to just look at these patterns. I'm going to do something about them. I'm going to be the one that is now starting a new pattern, because in families we have like the family pattern. Then sadly we also start our own patterns. I mean, like I have there are things that I've started that were not there in my family. Some are good and some are not good. Like I know I know of some people who, like, their parents were not Christians at all, but they have become Christians, or their parents. I mean, their parents were in like they were alcoholics, but they are not alcoholics. They start a new pattern. And there are also some who are in good families, in healthy families, but they start a pattern of some sort, a negative pattern. So you also have a pattern that you've started. And some of these things might be like obvious to the eyes. You know, we can look at them from outside and say, oh, wow, there's a pattern, there's a certain pattern in this family. And some are insidious. We don't say them. We cannot acknowledge them from outside. We cannot be able to point at them. And even in your families, you look at each other and you're like, okay, this thing that is happening, and probably don't even talk about it. But that thing is lethal, and it eats everybody. It eats everybody. Families need to sit down and discuss these things and bring them to the open, expose them and talk about, say, okay, we have noticed this and this and this. Recently I had a story of, sadly, of someone in North Texas. I don't know whether I should say. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, it's online. It's online, so I think it's okay for me to say. There's this lady who lost a son, a 14-year-old son, from a gunshot. Honestly, I feel so sad when I'm talking about that story, because these things make me sad, you people. These things make me so sad. So as this lady is, it said, I actually even listened to CNN, and it said that as this lady was preparing her son for burial, dressing her son for burial, on the burial day, she receives news that her 6-year-old daughter has been killed. The same way, a gunshot. And I was like, what are the odds? Like, really, what are the odds? And I really wanted to find out. Like, when I hear some things nowadays, I just want to find out. I want to sit down with you and hear what is. I mean, tell me about your family. Tell me about. I really want to go back and see, like, where is there an open door? And if not, then I want to close. Like, if I was a pastor coming to such a funeral, after the funeral, I would. No, not even after the funeral, because you see, this girl dies when the brother has not even been buried. When some things happen, I mean, doors should be closed. Like, cut it. Don't take things for granted, and don't normalize things. Let's go to this guy, this guy called Abraham. So Abraham lies to Abimelech that Sarah is his wife, is his sister. Abraham has a son called Isaac. Years later, I don't know if Abraham sat down and told the son, oh, this is what I did with Abimelech, this is what how I lied. I don't even know whether it was disclosed to him. But years later, Isaac will lie again to Abimelech that Rebecca, the wife, is his sister. Same thing. Isaac has a son called Jacob. Do I even need to talk about the lies of Jacob? Jacob is the mother of liars, the father of liars. Jacob is now the trickster, tricks his brother, lies to his dad, like the same. I mean, Isaac lies that I'm Esau and I want your blessings, and takes his blessings, and he is a liar. And this comes from his dad. I mean, it comes from way down. So we cannot assume that some things are not passed to generations. But let's go back to patterns. It's still a pattern. But now let's go to Let's move from these people. You can say, oh, these are people from old age. And now I love introspecting. I love coming back home. I love using myself again as an example. And I want to let you into a pattern that I noticed in my life. Prayerfully so, keenly so, deliberately so, and very intentional on learning a lot of things. Okay, so I've noticed a pattern of 18 years in my life. So in my family in general, in the other video I said 39 years, that my mom and the two sisters and the brother, they all died at 38. And I mean, that's something that like we realized, right? Not 39, it's 38. So there's this 38 pattern, but I want to talk about the pattern that I have noticed in my life. Okay, so when I was 18, I lost my last parent. That's my mom. And of course, I lived with her for 18 years. That's why I was 18. So I lived with my mom for 18 years. I mean, 4 years after my dad has died. And I go through such a heavy loss. And I go through, I mean, whatever I go through, like, oh my God, it was really I then I take a gap period of 2 years. And when I was 20, I got married. Then I was going to turn 21, but I hadn't turned 21. I had a few months into turning 21. So I get married. Then I get married for 18 years, because I would say, like, I was now sure that my marriage was over. I think after the 18-year mark, you know. So I'm married for 18 years, and this is another loss that I experienced, like a heavy loss. So the first 18 years of my life, I go through the loss of my mom. I have a break. I again, now see, I'm 18, then 2 years, so that's 20. So then I get to 38, and that's 18 years after marriage. I've lost my marriage. And then, so that's death to my marriage. So death of my mom, death of my marriage. Then my mom dies at 38. And by the time now my marriage is dying, I'm 38. So I don't die, but I experience, a part of me dies. I mean, a part of me dies. So I experience death, another death. And the truth is, I mean, I would have died. Like, I physically was very unwell, but if I'm to bring you even closer home, sometime in May 2021, I have the doctor's report. That's a whole story. I'm gonna give you that story, and I'm gonna tell you, like, what happened and what happened to whatever I'm gonna talk. I want to mention. So I'm laying on the couch, and I was very sad. Then I don't know what happened, because I put my hand on my abdomen, and I feel a lump. I'm 38. And let me tell you, I'm telling you, and I mean, God is my witness. My first reaction, and my friend Jambi is a witness too. My first reaction was, because she's the person I called first. After I felt the lump, she's the first person I called. I felt a lump, and that was my reaction. Let me tell you, that was my reaction. I was like, hey, devil, hey, you have no shame. You have no shame. Like, where is your creativity? You're trying to come the same way. I am going to live beyond 38 and beyond 40 and beyond. And that was my reaction. I remember when I was calling my friend, and I was like, hey, this is what I felt, and this is what I've seen. And I'm going to tell you that story, because I went to hospital, and I'm going to tell you what happened. And she's like, I was like, you know what? Do you know what, how old I am now? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, and do you know what? And we were like, wow. And I was like, the devil has to be creative, because you guy, you devil, I have known how you come. you are a thief. Like, and you are a thief. You still, the way God says, I'll visit your families to the third and fourth generation. It's the same way the devil does. He's not creative at all. But now he's not creative, and he's not even, he doesn't even have new, he doesn't have new things. He just comes in the same way. It's you who sits there ignorant, playing and toying with, my sister just got pregnant. She's not married. My other sister just got pregnant. Like you just toy with these things. Or you're like, okay, yeah, my uncle had an accident. Actually, my other uncle had an accident. And you're just giving like stories, and you're talking like stories. You are lavishing in poverty, the same way your grandfathers and your grandmothers and you're there saying, okay, in our family, this is how things are. And some people like have even possessed some things like, it's our family thing, our diabetes, our high blood pressure, I'm not saying that maliciously, but I want you to understand, and I want you to say no to some of these things that are just open doors, and some of these things that are just patterns. You've got to cut that loop. You've got to cut that cycle. In part 2, I'm going to be telling you how I broke free from the pattern of education, and I'm going to be telling you a bit more on this education pattern. And I think this is just I just find it amazing. It's an amazing testimony for me. It's an amazing miracle for me. So I want you to stay with me as I tell you how my education pattern was and how I was able to break that. See you in part 2. Check out.
We rise like tall buildings as the chemicals, they take us higher. The night's young, and it's just